Thanks for downloading another segment from the Best of the Classic Metal Show. The Classic Metal Show is heard live on Saturdays from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern, exclusively at www.theclassicmetalshow.com. And now here's another piece of Classic Metal Show history on the Best of the Classic Metal Show.
The Classic Metal Show.
It is the Classic Metal Show right here on theclassicmetalshow.com. That's Black Sabbath featuring Ronnie James Dio, and that, of course, is Lady Evil. And, Chris, I know this guy that we got on the phone. He's a big Black Sabbath Dio fan. You've heard him talk about him before, right?
Every Monday on XM, absolutely.
Right. Well, we want to welcome back to the Classic Metal Show the one and only radio DJ extraordinaire, Eddie Trunk. Welcome back to the Classic Metal Show, Eddie.
Hey, guys, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I am definitely a big Dio Sabbath fan. Nothing against the Ozzy era. I love that as well, but the Dio era is when I discovered the band, and I love what they're doing now. I can't wait for the new record, actually, because I love those 3 new tracks they did on the Greatest Hits.
Well, see, Eddie, that just proves that I listen to your show.
It does. I appreciate that. It absolutely does. And, you know, it's funny because on the TV show that I have coming up, which I know we're going to talk about, we have a debate segment with the audience, and one of the debates in the TV show in one of the episodes is Sabbath with Dio versus Sabbath with Ozzy, and we get into it on the set a little bit on that. So it's actually one of our debate topics on this new VH1 Classic show I'm doing.
Excellent. Well, Eddie, the name of the show is That Metal Show, correct?
Yeah, it is. I guess kind of after That 70s Show. It was not our. It was not our idea for the name of the show. It was the executives, but you know, we're getting more comfortable with it.
Well, look at you already apologizing for a lame name.
Well, it's just funny. You know, I'll tell you, it's really funny what happened with that. The reason it's funny you bring that up because we one of the most difficult things we had when this show got up and running was to try to figure out what it was going to be called. It became this big issue between myself and my 2 co-hosts and the network, and we all submitted about 15 names, and the one name that was on one of the lists that we all said, well, we can live with any of these names except for that one. And what do you know? That was the one they ended up using. So we are all getting warmed up to it. I guess it's kind of in the spirit of like That 70s Show. And hey, look, you know, when you're trying to do a show with the network, and if that's one of the sticking points to get it on the air, you go with what they want to do. I actually personally didn't want the show to even have the word metal in the title. Only because I wanted to be able to have the diversity to go a little bit more wider in scope. And quite honestly, I mean, I think what happens is, and you know, that's why on my radio show I always say hard rock and metal, because I think there's a very distinct difference between the two. And ultimately what you have is you have a guy like, you know, I don't know, Bret Michaels, who's a really great interview, but, you know, you have him on something called a metal show, and needless to say there's going to be some backlash from the real metal community. So I wanted to kind of guard against that, but another thing that VH1 told us in their studies was that when any time anything had the word metal in it, it had a better audience reaction and rating than when it was just called rock or hard rock. So, again, we deferred to the experts there and went with their wisdom, and within the context of the TV show, we tell people that it is, you know, it's called That Metal Show, but it is the best of hard rock and metal.
Sure. Now, Eddie, will the show be featuring primarily the quote-unquote classics, or will you go into, like, your Kill Switch Engage and newer type stuff, or what are you looking to do?
No, it's definitely the classic core artist for a channel like VH1 Classic. It's predominantly 70s and 80s hard rock and metal artists. So it's very much suited and tailored to the demographic that is VH1 Classic. So basically any of the artists that you would see that channel play concerts from or, you know, see videos from are pretty much fair game to be guests on our show. The show does not have any videos or music in it for a couple of different reasons, but it's strictly a talk interview show. And a lot more than that, though, too, because there's a comedic element with my 2 co-hosts being stand-up comics and big fans of hard rock and metal as well. So they bring that element to it. They're Jim Florentine and Don Jameson. They're 2 guys that are friends of mine that I brought into this to kind of bring that element, and they're perfect at it. And they do some great field segments with people, and it's really a lot of fun. So it's a mix of a lot of different things, but one thing it is not is performance or music or videos.
Okay, so it's almost like a heavy metal roundtable type of a thing, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a very good explanation. I'll tell you what, the top executive at VH1 called the show the View for hard rock and metal fans. You know, so there's a really interesting dynamic that goes on between all of us because we are all friends, and those guys being comics are big time ball busters. I take the brunt of the ball busting, but I got a thick skin after doing this for all these years, so I can roll with anything, and we have a good time. The one question that I don't know, we've shot the first season already, which is 8 episodes, and the one thing that I don't know yet, which I'm waiting to find out, is how this thing gets edited, because there's so much involved in the editing process. We overshot every show. When the shows air, they're going to be a half hour long, but we shot probably 45 minutes at least in every show. So it's really in the editor's hands now from what content they pick and choose and how it makes me look and everyone else look, because these two comics, you know, Don and Jim, they give it to me pretty good at times, and I zing them right back. Obviously, if they don't include my return zings, it makes me look like the whipping boy, which I'm ready for, because I got a feeling that's the way they're going to make it go. But it's all good. It's all in good fun. We have fun with the artists. We have fun with, you know, breaking each other's chops. Those guys go out in the field and they do stuff with people at concerts and stuff. And then I kind of act as the anchor on the set and host it and do the majority of the interviews with whatever artists we have on set with us. And the other cool thing is there's a live studio audience, too, so there's a lot of energy from them also.
Very cool. Now, Eddie, I remember when you left hosting over at VH1 and hosted Metal Mania and whatnot, a year or so ago. And I remember on your website you weren't really thrilled with it. Now, you didn't come out and bash VH1 or anything, but you definitely made it known that you weren't really happy about it. You know, was it easy to go back to working there again, or did you have to get over some feelings, or were the people that let the show go initially not even there anymore?
Well, no, that's a good point. I mean, I never, to be honest with you, I never had ill feelings at all towards the channel or the network for what happened, because what happened had nothing to do with me in particular. I mean, it was what happened a couple years ago with what you're referring to was a complete clean out of the channel, in the sense that there were 35, 40 people that worked for that channel exclusively, and they were all let go in one day. So it was not a reflective thing towards me at all, or any host at the time. It was just a change in philosophy and an economic issue where I think they looked at it, the powers that be, which are the people that work for, that run VH1 proper, and they said, listen, we've got a full-time studio for this channel, we've got a couple hosts, we've got editors and producers and general managers. We've got a lot of people here, and granted, we're producing some great original content, but we're also sitting on a vault of hours of old concerts and things on MTV and VH1 that haven't aired in years that we own, and things we can acquire that they felt would make more compelling programming and, quite honestly, would cost them nothing. So it was a complete change in philosophy on what was going to happen to the channel as a channel from above. And when that came down, it was literally one day where they said, okay, thanks, but VH1 Classic is going to cease to exist as a channel that creates new things for a little while, and we're going to reinvent it, and we're going to park all the pop-up video and all this other classic programming that we own that people haven't seen in a while, that's just sitting there, and we're going to put that on the channel. So that's what ended up happening. It was never a reflection on me or anyone, except for it was just an economic thing and all that. And when that went down, I actually still did do a couple things with the channel afterwards, because when you're a host, you're considered a freelancer. So, there were a lot of people behind the scenes, though, that those were full-time jobs for them with benefits, with families and stuff, that they were all let go, and some of them have surfaced elsewhere in jobs like that. Others are still looking for work. So I for me, I kind of just, it really stung, because I loved the channel so much. I loved the diversity that I brought to the channel. In other words, yes, my passion is hard rock and metal, but I really like talking to all the other different artists because I know quite a bit about that sort of music as well. And it was just a job that I thought was, I did for 5 years, and it was really comfortable for me. So it hurt when it was gone, but it was not a reflection on me or anyone. It was just a change in philosophy about what they were going to do. So when that happened, there were a lot of people upset. And I should also mention it was not just VH1 Classic. They have other, spin-off channels as well, VH1 Soul, things like that. And not to as large of a degree because VH1 Classic is by far the biggest of the spin-offs, but, there are people that were let go there too. So it was really a company-wide thing. But I maintained my relationships with everyone and all the people above that were part of this decision. I continued to stay in touch with them. I didn't want to let it go. I felt I still had more to offer to the channel. We had some conversations here and there, and then I started pitching this idea, and I realized that they wanted something that was, they didn't want straight music interviews anymore. They didn't want straight hosting of video hours anymore, but they wanted something, but they wanted it to be a little bit left of center, a little bit more fun, a little bit more edgy, a little bit more entertaining in their view. So I came up with this idea to bring to them, which was really born out of, the way I pitched it to them was best damn sports show for music fans. And that's what, and it went through an evolution and, obviously literally over a year's worth of meetings and discussions and pitches and different people drifting in and out of being involved in it, and it died for a while, and then I brought it back to life and went through, it's a chapter in a book alone what I went through to get it to this point. And then I introduced them to Don and Jim, let them see what they were capable of doing in terms of, from the comedic level and a lot of things. They had their own line of hidden camera videos, which, they'd done a lot of stuff with rock artists anyway. So I got them all that material, got them to agree to a meeting with those two to show that they would be great partners for me. And we went one step at a time and, kind of just chipped away. I'm persistent. I've always said there's a really fine line in being persistent and being annoying.
Well, Eddie, congratulations on the show and all, but that's not the story I heard. I heard that VH1 Classic wanted to keep pace with that juggernaut known as Talking Metal on Fuse. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, I'm not aware of that at all. I don't know. I know the guys who did that show. They're both good guys, and I don't know anything about that show or what happened to it. I know it was pretty short-lived. But I can tell you, honestly, that my show was in development at VH1 Classic before that show even went on the air.
Sure, I was only kidding about that, Eddie.
No, I'm sure. No, but I know those guys, and I know that kind of came and went real quickly, and I don't know what went on there, and I don't have any knowledge of that situation. But it's a shame because look, it's not a competitive thing. I think what we have here is something really unique, something that no one's ever seen before. But at the same token, I'm a fan of these bands and this music like we all are, and at the end of the day, it's about trying to get more outlets to expose this stuff. So, I don't know what went on with that situation over there, but this thing has been knocking around with me for a long time, and it's gone through a lot of stuff before we've got it to this point. And we shot the pilot back in the summer, and we found out about a month after that we were going to go to a series, and we've shot season 1 and premieres on November 15th at 11 and be a new episode every Saturday. And we just got greenlit for a second season before the first season even starts to air, which is pretty unheard of in TV. So they're obviously pretty pumped up about it. They've taken out an ad in Rolling Stone that's coming out next week, putting an ad out, a billboard up on Sunset Boulevard. They're really excited about it at the network, and I don't get too high or too low. I just kind of keep an even keel and wait and see how it all unfolds.
Excellent, Eddie. Well, again, congratulations on that, and that's
Thanks.
very cool. And could you imagine, being that you got a Jim Florentine involved, which he's a great comic. I really like his comic style. But could you imagine if, say, like a Sam Kinison were still alive, being he was the quote unquote rock and roll comedian? Could you imagine him being your co-host?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of guys that would be great in that role. Surely Kinison, everybody knows with Wild Thing and all the, the great things that he's done with, rock bands and the affiliation there. I mean, another guy who is my personal all-time favorite comic is Andrew Dice Clay. And Dice opened for Guns N' Roses, as a stand-up. So, and I had Dice on my XM show not too long ago, and I've gotten to know him a little bit recently because both Don and Jim opened for him a lot, and I've gotten to know him through those guys. And I'm a huge Dice fan. And I mean, he's a guy that we'd love to try to get on the show at some point and do a bit with. But there's a bunch of other comics that are really into rock music. This whole TV show and this whole idea of kind of merging comics and metal really was born out of my radio show, because I've always had a lot of comics on. Jim Brewer's always been on with me. Like I said, Florentine and Jameson, Billy Mira, Craig Gass. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that, if they were big rock fans, would always come and sit in and hang out on my show. And one of the things that VH1 really wanted to create with this show is they wanted it to be the same spirit of my radio show and when these guys came on. So it is to some degree, but the flip side to that, and the big difference is in radio there's 3 hours and you could really spread out. This is a half hour, so it's a lot more quick hitting.
Sure. Well, speaking of your radio show, Eddie, there's a guy in Oklahoma City who he speaks very highly of you, and I don't know if you ever listened to the Classic Metal Show at all, or if you ever tuned us in ever and listened to Chris's and I's style and what we do, but we're kind of ball busters too, and we kind of goof on people a little bit, but I guess we drew the ire of this one guy. He refers to himself as the Rev. And for whatever reason, he feels he can volunteer your time and your radio show to him. Would you like to hear him talking about that?
Wait, I don't follow you. He wants to do what?
He evidently feels comfortable enough to volunteer your time and your radio show to entertain a debate between the Classic Metal Show and himself.
But what does my radio show have to do with his or yours?
Well, that's the good question.
Our question forever.
That's what our question is. So would you like to hear it?
Yeah, sure. I don't know what I'm hearing, but sure.
Well, take a listen to this.
Let me give you my cell number. 1-405-314-0560. I want Eddie Trunk to call me. You know what? That's the deal. There you go. That's the deal. You get this on Eddie Trunk's show. You want me? Get me on Eddie Trunk. Classic Metal Show versus Dirt Talk on Eddie Trunk. There you go. How about that? What do you think about that, Ray? Because I'll bet you $1 million they can't do it. I'll bet you $1 million they can't do it. And I hope they do. So we can de-pants them freaking morons in front of the world. What do you think? I'm setting myself on the table. I'm ready to bring it on.
Yeah, I'm ready too.
So how about that?
So it sounds like to me he wants my show to host the debate or issues between your show and his show?
That's what he's saying.
That's it.
It sounds like you guys. Why do you guys? Where's the issue based out of between the two of you guys?
Oh well, we were just kind of goofing on him a little bit because he's one of these real pompous guys that just acts like he knows everything, and we called him out on a few things, and so now he's kind of
he thinks the place that issues get solved is on the Eddie Trunk Show.
Well, I've had my fair share of debates on a lot of things, whether it be, well, God, the list is too long to even get into, but I've never debated two people's radio grievances on my show. I'm flattered that he thinks that enough of my show that, it's a place where this would be, the ultimate place for something like this to be resolved, but in all honesty, I don't know if there's enough interest, or awareness with my audience to really do that.
Eddie, believe me, we're not pitching this to happen.
No, but it's an interesting concept. Let me tell you something. My biggest issue with what I do in radio is the lack of time that I have. I have 3 hours a week on FM broadcast, terrestrial, whatever you want to call it, and it's on a dozen cities, 13 cities, whatever, and we just picked up a station in Phoenix, KDKB, which is a big score. But I've got 3 hours a week there, and I've got 4 hours on satellite radio a week. If I had, my dream is to have 5 nights a week to do what I do on radio. And if I had that, I'd have both of you guys on tomorrow doing this. I think that's great radio. I think it would be fun. But I mean, my biggest problem is that I'm trying to cram so much into a weekly 3-hour terrestrial show, which is not easy when you consider again that there's commercials and stuff in there. But I certainly hope you guys can resolve this in some sort of way at some point.
I hear you, Eddie. Well, Eddie, I want to swing it back around to radio because, and I'm going to start by letting you know that I took your recommendation from the XM show at the beginning of the year and saw a band that one, I mean, I knew their music obviously, but I was not a huge fan of. But after seeing them, I was like, wow, this band really kicks ass, and that was UFO this year, man. They just ripped the doors off of the little club that we saw him in, and I basically decided to go see him based on hearing you for week after week, selling their praises on the XM show.
Yeah, people thought that I had some sort of vested interest or was getting some sort of kickback because I'm such a UFO fan. Unfortunately, those guys are in no position to, not that I would ever do that, but they're not in a position to kick back anyone but themselves because clearly after 40 years they're still trying to make their way and trying to get their own traction and pay their own bills. But they're of all the bands I grew up with, their music holds up extremely well to me. I just think that it's a shame that they were so unbelievably underrated and underappreciated. And I'm happy to hear things like what you just told me, and that me screaming about them for all this time has kind of made an impact. There's been a lot of people that have come to me and said, hey, if I'm going to start with UFO, what album do I start with, and things like that. So I know it's resonating with people. Most people that get turned on to it are real big, become big fans of the band. And next year is their 40th anniversary, and it's good to see. A real quick thing about UFO, which I don't think I had anything to do with, but was really a cool thing. I've never seen the show on Fox, Prison Break, but someone told me that a UFO song was featured in that TV series last week, actually, or a couple weeks ago. So I think that's really cool. I mean, there's some producer at Fox or something that's clearly, a UFO fan. And then, Kirk Hammett was in Rolling Stone about a month ago saying that UFO was the reason why he picked up a guitar. So when stuff like that starts coming out, it certainly is good to see and good to see people start to get an awareness for a band no matter how late in the game it is, Where did you see him at?
Here in Cleveland at a little club called Tangiers, which it's like a dinner club almost. It has like 200 seats. It was great.
Yeah, they're just a class band, and the sad part about it is, unfortunately, Pete Wake still can't get into America. So Pete is one of the founding members, and
sure.
I really wish that could get resolved. It's been like 5 years now, so I'm hoping like heck that that works itself out at some point, and that Pete gets healthy and can get over here, because next year being the 40th anniversary, it would be awesome if they came out and they did some shows with. Not only with Pete, but maybe, if Michael Schenker can keep his head on straight, and Paul Chapman, I was a big fan of the records he made, and of course the stuff they're doing with Vinny is great also. So it'd be really cool if they could find a way to make that work, because I think a lot of people would be pumped up for that.
Absolutely, man. Well, dude, obviously, I'm a fan of your XM show, and Neely listens to your XM show as well and is a fan. And I'm curious, with the merger, a lot of things changing, a lot of people from XM not around anymore. Are you going to get to hang in, or what's it look like, or do you know yet?
Yeah, no, that's a developing situation by the hour as we speak right now. Sadly, yeah, I mean, a byproduct of this merger, a lot of people were yelling, wanting this merger and for some very obvious reasons, but the one thing that I had always feared about the merger is I said, well, the merger happens, that's great for the audience, and it's great to have, double the amount of people literally overnight being able to access whatever channels or shows they want, but the flip side of that is obviously whenever a merger happens, there's a lot of good people that lose jobs, and sadly that's the case. A lot of people on the XM side and a good amount of people, from what I understand, on the Sirius side as well. What's happening is they are in the process now of sooner than later, as a matter of fact, I'm told maybe in the next week or two, all the music channels are going to be merged. So basically, regardless of if you have Sirius or XM, you will get this 99% the same exact music channels. That means some stuff is going to go on the Sirius side, some stuff is probably going to go on the XM side. If you have 4 XM rock channels and 4 Sirius rock channels, well, at the end there will probably be 4 standing, and 4 may go by the wayside altogether, because they can't physically take everything from both sides and just put it on one platform. It can't be done because they don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the ability to deliver all of it in the system. It gets into technical issues, and honestly, they need to streamline it a little bit now that it's merged, because the whole idea is to try to save some money and keep the thing going. The good news for me is that I did receive notice that I will be retained and that my show will be a part of the new merged system. Probably for me, that means sometime in January of next year. But there's still some details being worked out. I'm not sure when, because these decisions go way above me, when things are going to be merged. I'm not sure if some things are going to have to be, taken off for a little bit and come back on. I'm waiting on information on that. All I know is that I've been told that to keep doing, what I do, and that they definitely want to keep my show and make it part of the merged service, which I'm obviously grateful for. I mean, it's what I tried to do there, and what I try to do with that show is do something a little bit different than what people normally hear on the music channels, and most people like it. There's some that don't, but it's 4 hours a week, and there's plenty of other things to listen to if you don't. I just really wanted to create some sort of interactive programming and do what I do, which is really a hybrid of talk about music and playing the music. And I think because of that, it's kind of people who are into the show, it's become like a destination. So I think that's one of the things that has helped the support from people and has helped them reach the conclusion that I should be part of this going forward. So I'm grateful to the audience. I'm happy that this new merged Sirius XM is going to be a part of it, and it is going to be cool because there's XM has about 9 million subscribers, Sirius has about 8 million, and when this merger is done on the radio side, I will now be accessible to another 8 million people literally overnight at some point in the next month or two. So that's exciting to me, and I'm looking forward to connecting to those people, because there's been a lot of people on the Sirius side that have said to me, man, we'd love to be able to get your show, and we don't buy 2 different radios and all that. So I hope it's a good thing for everybody, and hopefully a good thing for the company too, because at the end of the day, this technology's really got to keep building, and people really have to kind of get into this evolution of satellite radio, because it needs to continue to grow and become something people are interested in.
Sure. Well, I see one of your compadres over there, Dee Schneider, has his doubts about that and feels that satellite radio will go by the wayside fairly soon as well.
I saw Dee's comments about that recently. I've known Dee for a really long time, and I respect Dee tremendously because he is a total straight shooter, even at his own expense and peril sometimes. He completely speaks from the heart. He doesn't pull punches on anything, and I have a lot of respect for people that do that. I don't necessarily agree with everything he said in that little article that I read. But look, it's an interesting situation. I mean, what Dee is doing on the Sirius side is, I believe he does a show on Fangoria, which is, like a horror movie talk show or something. So right. The beauty of satellite radio is that you can have Dee Snyder doing and have something called a Fangoria channel, that you can have a show like mine, and for 4 hours playing music and having, last night had Randy Jackson in from Zebra talking politics and Led Zeppelin. I mean, or Yngwie Malmsteen talking about politics and stuff like we did last night. So, that's the coolest, that's what's so cool about satellite. I mean, that's to me is the most compelling thing, much more so than the fact that you can hear song after song on any sort of formatted music channel. But look, Dee's not saying anything that anyone doesn't know that follows the market and industry and business, and that is the fact that the company needs needs a kick. I mean, they're trying to really make this thing work, and anybody that follows stock prices and things like that know that it's not without its challenges. And there's also challenges from the technical standpoint. I mean, it's isn't a cheap proposition to run. You're talking about satellites orbiting the Earth. You're talking about new satellites that have to go up when the other ones burn out. I mean, stuff that's just mind-boggling from a space age type thing. It's crazy. So, nothing's cheap. The thing's got to prosper. And I think that the merger will help. But I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know if it's going to go one way or the other. But, there's a lot of frustration with some people at Satellite because you'll hear from a lot of people that, make tremendous amounts of money in satellite radio that have these blockbuster, unbelievable contracts for people like, Howard Stern or Oprah Winfrey or Martha Stewart. But for every one of those, there's a lot of people that get paid peanuts or a lot of people that, quite honestly, don't get paid at all. And they're doing it because they want to be on radio and make these connections. So, it's a pretty polarizing situation with people that work in satellite. I kind of slot in somewhere in the middle. If I had my druthers, I mean, sure, I'd be making more money and I would be on more. I'd love to do, and people have said for years, hey man, well, you should just do your show. Why do you do it just Monday? I'd love for you to do it Monday to Friday. And the answer is, so would I, but that's not my decision. People tell me all that. It's funny, I hear from people all the time on the FM stations I'm on, dude, why don't you want to do more shows? You should be on more. Well, it's not my call. The program directors have to want it, and of course they need to be paid. The XM situation is interesting. They would love for me to do it, and I could do it tomorrow, but there's no money. They wouldn't pay me anything. So, if I was a kid looking to break into radio, that would be one thing. But, I've got 25 years under my belt here, and I do have mouths to feed and a family to support. So I did my work for free 25 years ago, and, man, I worked for 5 years at a radio station without getting paid a penny. So I put my time in, and I think I've built a little something with this audience and in this world. And, my days of working for nothing are not going to, that's not going to happen. But, that's a matter of principle for me at this point. But, I'd love to do more, and maybe if the situation presents itself going forward with this merger, I'd be the first in line. But for now, at least on the satellite side, things should remain pretty much unchanged with my show as far as where it's at. The only big change would be the positive that a lot more people will be able to hear it.
Excellent, Eddie. Well, good. Well, there you go. Eddie Trunk on satellite, Eddie Trunk on terrestrial, Eddie Trunk back on VH1 Classic with the new show, The Metal Show, or That Metal Show. And when does that air, Eddie? And when can people watch that?
The show premieres on November 15th at 11 o'clock Eastern and Pacific. And then you do the conversion from there if you're not Eastern or Pacific. And so that's a Saturday night at 11. And there will be a new episode every Saturday night after, from there on out. There will be replays throughout the week, no doubt. I just don't know what the schedule for that is. But the show premieres on the 15th of November, and then the new one will run every Saturday at 11. It's a half-hour show, and the first show that everyone will see on the 15th was actually the pilot that got us picked up. And Lita Ford is the guest. And it's interesting because when you guys see the first show, and then when we go to the next week in the second show, you'll see a pretty big difference. And the difference being that, we changed some stuff. The first show is exactly that, a pilot, a test show, a test run. It's going to seem a little dated because, it was shot in the summer and there's some things in it that I think one of the things we discussed is if the new Guns N' Roses record will ever come out. Clearly we know it's going to now, but, at the time we taped it, we obviously didn't. So, it's going to be, it's a kind of a good introduction to the show, but what the show truly becomes starts with season 2, because that's when we go to series, and there's some things in the first show that we don't do again the rest of the way that we didn't feel worked that well. So you can kind of see the evolution of it as it airs, and we're going to start shooting season 2 in February of next year. So there shouldn't be a lot of downtime between the two seasons when they run. And in season 1, in addition to Lita, we had Rush. Getty and Alex flew in from Canada just to do the show, which I was so honored by. Ace Frehley is in an episode. baseball star Mike Piazza's in an episode. Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater, Yngwie Malmsteen, AC/DC, Angus and Brian. So we have a good mix of guests in the first, and Twisted, J and D, do an episode as well. So we have a good mix of people, and it's a lot of fun. I think people who have seen it, that were in the audience, people that are in the crew. I mean, they've all been raving about it. Again, I've been in this game too long to get too high or too low, but I'm appreciative of what people are saying about it who've checked it out.
Excellent, Eddie. All right, well, go check out Eddie Trunk on his new VH1 Classic show. That Metal Show premieres November 15th, 11 p.m. Eastern Time and Pacific, and listen to him on his show on XM Radio on the Boneyard 41 there on Monday nights, and you can catch him in the New York area on Friday nights, right? Friday Night Rocks with Eddie Trunk?
Yeah, the show in New York, that show is actually called Eddie Trunk Rocks. It's the generic name for it because it originates in New York off of Q104 on Friday nights at 11, and then it's rebroadcast on the affiliate stations the next week, whatever days and times they want. So in New York they call it Friday Night Rocks because it's on a Friday, obviously, but it doesn't air on Fridays everywhere else, so it's a little bit more of a generic name elsewhere. But really the best thing to do is that people just go to my site, which is eddietrunk.com. We've redesigned that site. We got so much, upgraded it so much with video, and it's still evolving, but a new company has taken over the website, and there's just so much new content that we're doing and so many new things that are coming there that people who haven't seen my site in a while will, I think, really like. There's a ton of free content. There's podcasts, there's videos, there's a slew of stuff up there, and the complete grid of all the different ways and places you can hear the show, because you can log in online and listen to it live if you want from New York. You can, when the affiliate stations run it, if you miss it then, you can log in and hear their stream of it. It runs twice a week on KNAC.com, so there's a lot of different places that the show can be accessed, and you can find out everything up there, and you can also email me through that and all that. And the last thing real quickly on the satellite side, when this merger goes down, in terms of the channels being merged, there's going to be some changes, and like I said, some channels could go away for a little while and then come back. When they come back, they could be on different numbers on your service. So in other words, I don't know for a fact. I know for a fact Boneyard's going to continue. I don't know for a fact if Boneyard's still going to be 41 on the XM side. It could be a different number, and there's also going to be a number that it is going to be on the Sirius side as well. So there is some transition that's going to go down between here and the end of the year, and I don't have all the details yet, but I will post them as I get them on my site. So it's another good way for people to just keep up with what's going on in the event that, the channel's not on for a couple weeks or I'm not on for a couple weeks, just so people know what really is going on, because that's the way I can communicate with everybody pretty much, unfiltered.
Excellent, Eddie. Well, again, Eddie, we congratulations on the new show, That Metal Show, and we appreciate you taking time to talk to us again on the lowly Classic Metal Show.
Guys, I appreciate you having me, and really thank you. And if we start up season 2 on the TV show early next year, if you guys find yourself in New York when we're doing a taping, I'd be happy to have you down to the studio audience or whatever. It'd be good to meet you. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully we make that happen sometime.
Well, we're not worthy. We've only been doing this for 13 years, so when we get to that 25-year mark like you, maybe we'll take you up on that.
Well, and I can only hope that if you do, that you will have an honor like I did and have a band like Judas Priest play a free show for you, a free private show, because...
yeah, rub it in.
I'm not saying it to rub it in. I'm saying it because I can't thank a band like that enough. I mean, an honor of honors to have been able to accomplish and to have these relationships with these bands that I still am a fan of and grew up with, and to be able to call them friends and to have a band like Priest willing to do that when they played that for me back in August is the buzz for that still hasn't worn out. I mean, when a band like Judas Priest says to you, we want to do something for you, I mean, look, there's a ton of bands I worked with over the decades, but not a lot of that stature would come up and say something like that. So I can only hope you guys can get the same sort of honor at some point if you can hit that milestone, and I truly hope you do, because it's about, we're all in this together, trying to promote this stuff and let people know it's out there. And at the end of the day, these bands need us and we need them. So.
Sure. Well, we're close, Eddie. We've got London playing for us in the first of the year. So we're Judas Priest, London. They're about on the same caliber, right?
Who's left in London now?
Nader the Priest, Sean Lewis, and Tim Yasui.
I didn't even know they were still together.
Yeah, they're back. The Classic Metal Show brought them back.
Okay, well, that's pretty cool. I mean, it'd be cool if you could have got Nikki Sixx to get up there with them, but...
Well, Nikki's too busy, banging that tattoo chick now and, writing love poems and diaries and stuff. So I don't think...
Is that what he does now? I didn't even know. Who's the tattoo chick?
That Kat Von D on that L.A. Ink.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what he does now, so...
Well, hey, good, if that's... good for him if that's what it's about, but, he's already got another side band with 6 a.m., so why not go do some stuff with London? I don't know. It's funny you mentioned tattoos because, and I won't give anything away, but there is a show in the upcoming VH1 Classic show that focuses on me, UFO, and a tattoo, and I'll leave it at that. But you guys will see the bit when it unfolds on the show. It's pretty interesting. I'll leave it at that.
All right, Eddie. Well, we appreciate it once again, and Eddie, as always, we let our guest, pick a closing song. So, what would you like us to play to take us out of the interview, and maybe tell us a story about it?
Oh boy. Well, I'll tell you, we mentioned UFO earlier and how I kind of, inspired you guys to get into them a little bit. And since we talked about that, I'm going to go with a UFO song, and I'm going to go with, gun to my head, probably not only my favorite UFO song, but maybe my favorite or in my top 3 favorite songs of all time. And that would be the live version from Strangers in the Night of Love to Love by UFO.
Excellent.
And the reason why I love this so much, not only do I love the band, but this song in particular to me, in a nutshell, shows everything that is great about UFO. And that is the unbelievable combination of melody and heaviness, where you've got, Phil Mogg's voice just unbelievably top form, this beautiful melody and keyboard arrangement, and then just these jam you right in the gut power chords and heaviness and this jam and this guitar solo from Schenker. It's just, in a nutshell, everything that's great about UFO, from what I think is probably my favorite live album of all time. So that's the one to go with as far as I'm concerned.
All right. Well, once again, we want to thank Eddie Trunk, and here it is. This is Live UFO, exclusively here
on your Classic Metal Show.
Thanks for checking out the best of the Classic Metal Show. You can tune into the Classic Metal Show live every Saturday night from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern, exclusively at www.theclassicmetalshow.com.
The Classic Metal Show.